Let's bring in William Courtney, who's a former U.S. ambassador to Georgia and Kazakhstan and joins me live now from Washington, D.C. Ambassador, thank you so much for being with us on the program. So as I mentioned, the EU agreed to lend $105 billion to Ukraine instead of using those very controversial frozen Russian assets. Do you think that that was the right decision made in order to not escalate tensions, especially between Russia and the EU?
The decision was really made on considerations affecting the EU itself as opposed to Russia. The Belgians wanted to have liability risks shared among all the EU members if the frozen assets were to be used for the money provided to Ukraine. And that was not something the EU countries could agree on right away. So they did agree to use the money based on the EU budget as collateral for the loan to Ukraine, and that makes a lot of sense. Besides, earlier, it was thought that the frozen Russian assets might be held off and used for reconstruction in Ukraine after the war, and that still makes a lot of sense.
Right, there are conversations of Russian compensation being held as well. Putin says the ball is in Zelensky's court for peace negotiations. Does that mirror the reality of how the negotiations have progressed?
Well, the negotiations really have not progressed. In Alaska, Putin and Trump met. President Trump proposed a ceasefire, which Ukraine and Europeans had supported, but Putin refused a ceasefire and said, no, we should go on to negotiate a full peace accord, which is much more complicated than a ceasefire. So from that point forward, the negotiations have made zero progress. Russia has not made any concessions whatsoever. It's insisted on really ludicrous demands that Ukraine not move toward Europe, that the government in Ukraine is illegitimate, and therefore there need to be new elections in Ukraine. There's not going to be any progress based on the Russian position.
Marco Rubio,
Putin outlined that today, reiterated that today.
Marco Rubio had said that the U.S. is the only country that could end this war. How important is U.S. leverage at this point to push some sort of a deal through?
U.S. leverage has diminished markedly once the U.S. stopped providing military aid, arms to Ukraine, and stopped providing financial aid to Ukraine. So now it is the Europeans that are providing all the military and financial aid to Ukraine. Europeans do buy American weapons with their money and give them to Ukraine. The U.S. is providing some strategic intelligence to Ukraine, which is important. But as a result of the U.S. Declining to continue substantial aid, U.S. leverage in the talks has gone down. Europe's leverage has gone up.
Ambassador William Courtney, thank you so much for being with us here on TR2 World and sharing that analysis with us.
You're quite welcome.